In this story, you'll hear about a husband who discovers betrayal, not just from his wife, but from someone even closer. You never really think it'll happen to you, do you? I mean, all those stories here about people cheating on their spouses, ruining lives, ripping families apart. It's the kind of stuff you imagine happens to other people. Not me. John, the guy who works his ass off at a corporate job to make sure his family has everything they need. Not to me, who married Megan, the fitness junkie who looked like she was made out of stone, but could still soften up enough to be a mom to our 2 kids. Evan and Lauren. Life wasn't perfect, but we were doing all right, or so I thought. Megan, well, she was a fitness instructor. You know, the type always in those skin-tight yoga pants, spending every waking moment at the gym and making you feel guilty for grabbing that extra slice of pizza. Meanwhile, I was the typical desk jockey slaving away at a corporation that couldn't care less about its employees, as long as the numbers looked good at the end of the month. Things started going south when Megan kept talking about how tired she was. She'd come home, flop down on the couch, and complain about feeling like she was dragging all the time at first. I didn't think much of it. She was always pushing herself hard at the gym, always running from one training session to the next. Fatigue made sense. But then the complaints got more serious. She wasn't just tired, was sick. So of course she went to the doctor. I wasn't expecting the phone call. I got that day though. Megan sounded off, almost panicked. "I need to talk to you when I get home," she said. That's it. Nothing else, just left me hanging with my stomach doing flips, wondering what the hell was going on. When she finally got home, the first words out of her mouth hit me like a sledgehammer. "I have an STD," she said, just like that. No lead up, no sugarcoating, nothing. I blinked. What a sexually transmitted disease. John, the doctor, ran some tests, and that's what it is. Now here's where most guys would probably lose their cool, throw a tantrum maybe. They even start throwing accusations right away, but I just stood there stunned, trying to process what she was telling me. Megan had an STD, my wife had an STD. The next thing doctor tells me is that I should get tested too, just to be sure. And you know what? Enough, the results came back positive. I had it too. That little fact turned our marriage from a shaky platform to full-on quicksand. The trust foundation of everything was gone just like that. Megan, though she didn't even flinch, she immediately turned the tables on me. "This is your fault," she snapped the moment we were alone. "Who the hell have you been messing around with?" I stood there in complete disbelief. Me cheating. I'd been nothing but faithful to this woman. And here she was, pointing fingers at me as if I was the one who had been sneaking around. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I tried to stay calm. "Megan, are you serious right now? I haven't been with anyone but you. How could you even say that?" But she didn't stop. Megan could be relentless when she wanted to be, and that night she was out for blood. Every little thing I'd done in the last 6 months got thrown back in my face. I didn't pay enough attention to her. I worked too much, didn't report her gym goals enough, you name it. Was suddenly my fault in the middle of her rant. It hit me, her distance, late nights at the gym, sudden new outfits she'd start wearing after work. It was all started to make sense. This wasn't my fault. Megan was hiding something, and it wasn't just her gym routine. I kept my cool that night, but in my mind, things started clicking in a place. I wasn't stupid. I knew the signs, just been too wrapped up in work and the kids to see what was going on right under my nose. And then there was Jenny, Megan's best friend. Jenny was over all the time, practically part of the family at this point. But lately, I noticed something odd. Megan and Jenny always seem to have these secret little conversations. They disappear into another room, leave me sitting in the living room with kids like some kind of idiot. It started nagging at me. What were they talking about that was so private? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. And it wasn't just Megan's sudden paranoia about me cheating. It was the way she'd gotten colder over the last few months, like she was always a little bit checked out. There was always an excuse: late at the gym, a client that needed extra help, a friend's emergency still. I tried to push through. We had kids after all. Evan 10 and Lauren 7, sweet kids but smart. They could feel the tension between us, especially Lauren. She'd look up at me with those wide eyes, asking why mommy and daddy were always fighting. I'd sit with her, read a story, or help her with homework, all the while trying to pretend that everything was fine, but it wasn't. I knew, and deep down, Megan knew it too. So here we were, two adults barely talking to each other, stuck in the same house pretending like our marriage wasn't a sinking ship. I could feel the cracks widening every day, but Megan wasn't about to admit. Was anything? No, she was the victim. One who'd been wronged, the one who needed me to promise to something I hadn't done, but I wasn't the one hiding something she was, and I'm going to find out what it was. It didn't take long for the doubts to start creeping in after the whole STD bombshell. Megan got more defensive, more secretive. The woman who used to leave her phone lying around now kept it glued to her side, always texting, always flipping her screen down the second I got close. I'd catch her in the middle of a message and she'd act like it was no big deal, brushing it off with a quick smile. "What you think? I'm hiding something," she'd say, eyes challenging me. It was the same every time, turning the suspicion back on me as if I was the one sneaking around. Then there was the gym. Megan had always been a rat, but now it seemed like her second home, hell, maybe even her first. She was always there, weekends late, evenings, times she never used to go. It was as if she was avoiding being at home with me and the kids, and it wasn't subtle either. One Saturday morning, I decided to test the waters. I casually mentioned that, wanted to start working out more, get back in shape. I could see her eyes widen for just a split second before she plastered on that fake supportive smile. "Oh, that's great, John, but maybe not today. I'd got a really busy schedule with clients. It'd be hard to fit me in. We were married for Christ's sake." I didn't need to be fit in her schedule. The excuses kept coming every time I suggested going with her. She had a reason why it wasn't convenient. A client needed her extra attention. The gym was packed, or she just didn't feel like being distracted by me, apparently. I knew what was up. Wasn't born yesterday. I mean, no one spends that much time at the gym unless they're trying to avoid someone or something. In her case, trying to sneak around. That's when I decided couldn't keep playing dumb. I needed answers. And if Megan wasn't going to give them me, I'd find them myself. Hiring a private investigator wasn't a decision I took lightly, but at this point, I was done with her games. I needed the truth and needed proof. So, I called Michael, recommended by a friend of his. He specialized in this kind of thing, and I didn't have any problem trusting him with this dirty job. Michael didn't waste any time. Within 2 weeks, he had everything I needed. Remember the day he handed me the manila envelope, thick with evidence? My stomach dropped as I opened it, knowing that whatever was inside would confirm what I already knew but wasn't ready to face. Photos, videos, all of them showed Megan meeting up with her fitness trainer, Dave. I'd heard her talk about him before in that casual way she had, when she didn't want me to think anything of it. "Oh," Dave said, "I should try this new routine," or "Dave's been great for my motivation, but now." I was staring at pictures of my wife meeting Dave in parking lots, exchanging long glances, even sneaking a kiss before driving off to God knows where. The videos were worse, grainy footage of them leaving together, their bodies pressed too close. For just a client and trainer relationship, I felt a mixture of rage and numbness. Part me wanted to smash something, yell at her from Ronta right there, but another part of me, maybe the more dangerous part, was cold calculating. Now wasn't the time for emotion. Now was the time to plan over the next few days. I couldn't help but notice every little detail. Megan tried to hide her phone, always silent. The way she suddenly started wearing new workout clothes, flashy tight, the kind that screamed, "Look at me." She come home late sweating, but not from any workout I was familiar with. I started piecing it together like a detective in one of those crime shows. The new lingerie in her drawer, the one she hadn't worn for me, those for Dave. I knew it, the long training sessions that somehow stretched into hours, and then there was Jenny, her best friend, the perfect alibi. Megan would often claim to be spending time with Jenny, grabbing coffee or having some girl time, but I wasn't stupid. Jenny was the cover. More I thought about it, the more I realized how often Megan used her as an excuse. Meanwhile, Jenny, bless her, clueless soul, had no idea she was being played, just like me. It was all too much to ignore. Every time Megan left the house, every time she looked at her phone with that sneaky little smile, it only added fuel to the fire. My mind kept going over every suspicious moment, every lie she told, every time she brushed off my concerns. I started noticing even more things. Her mood swings. 1 minute she'd be her usual bubbly self, and the next she'd snap at me for the smallest thing. It was like she always on edge, waiting for something to blow up. Maybe she was scared, I'd figure. it out. Maybe she was waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of an easy out. I wasn't going to explode in some dramatic confrontation. No, I was going to make her sweat. I had the proof now upper hand, and I was going to use it. Jenny came over one night as usual. She sat in the living room chatting away with Megan while I pretended not to care, but I couldn't stop watching them. Megan laughing too easily, trying hard to normal, and Jenny oblivious, thinking everything was fine. Little did they know. I was already 5 steps ahead after. Michael handed me that envelope. The path forward was clear. I wasn't going to front. Megan right away, no. That would have been too easy for her, satisfying. She didn't deserve an explosion, some heated argument, where she could twist everything around and try to make me the villain, no? I had something better in mind. Revenge. I started by analyzing the evidence. Those photos and videos were like gold in my hands. They weren't just proof of Megan's betrayal. They were my ticket to making her squirm, to tearing apart the little world she and Dave thought they had built in secret. Dave, the cocky bastard, thought he could mess around with my wife and just walk away like nothing happened. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. I wasn't going to just show Megan the evidence and walk away. That would have been the easy route, and I wasn't about to give her any sort of mercy. I wanted to make her life difficult, slowly, painfully, and I wanted Dave to pay for screwing with my marriage, literally. I bided my time playing along like everything was normal at home every day. Megan would come home a little later, her excuses growing weaker, her smiles more forced. I watched her knowing what she was up to but not saying a damn thing. The tension was palpable. She nervous, probably wondering if I had figured it out. Maybe that STD scare had gotten her more than I realized. Either way, kept my cool, but at night after the kids were in bed and Megan had retreated to her side of the bed, I was strategizing. Didn't just want Dave to lose Megan, no. I wanted him to lose everything: his job, his reputation, whatever future he thought he had, lined up as some hotshot personal trainer. He didn't deserve to keep coasting along after what he did. So I made an appointment with the gym's management under the pretense of wanting to discuss a potential membership upgrade. A reason, but it got me in the door. When I sat down with manager, a middle-aged guy named Robert, I could tell he wasn't ready for what I was about to unload. I started by showing him the photos. Megan and Dave sneaking around, not exactly hiding their little rendezvous. Robert's face went from refused to shocked in a matter of seconds. I'm not here to cause a scene, I told him, keeping my voice calm and measured even though I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. But I think you want to take a look at these. Your employee Dave has been getting a little too friendly with one of his clients. I slid the photos across desk and watched. Robert's eyes widen. He wasn't just shocked, he was pissed. The gym had a reputation to uphold after all, and the last thing they wanted was a scandal involving a trainer screwing around with a married client if this goes public. I continued, it could be bad for business, but I'm willing to keep it quiet on one condition: you fire Dave, no questions asked, and make sure he doesn't get any glowing recommendations for his next job. Make it hard for him to find work in this town. Robert didn't argue, he knew. I had them cornered within the hour. Dave was out of a job just like that. I'd stripped him of his livelihood, but I wasn't done yet. On my way out, I ran into Bob, one of the gym's older employees. Bob wasn't exactly close to Dave, and from the way he talked, I could tell didn't have much respect for the guy either. He'd seen Dave's antics for a while, flirting with clients, taking advantage of his position. It wasn't new, but apparently Megan was just the latest in a long line of poor decisions. Bob wasn't shy about helping me out. I'd seen what he's been doing, Bob said, keeping his voice low as we chatted near the gym's front desk. I don't like how he treats people here. You did the right thing, we exchanged numbers, and Bob promised to keep me updated on any fallout. He didn't need much convincing. He was just as eager to see Dave go down as I was. Meanwhile, at home, kept playing the long game with Megan. Every time she came home from her sessions at the gym, I could see the nervous radiating off her. Maybe she was starting to sense that things weren't adding up. Maybe Dave was feeling the heat from his sudden unemployment, or maybe it was just her own guilt catching up to her. Either way, she was on edge, and I loved it. Started messing with her head just a little. I'd make offhand comments about the gym, about how Dave must be so busy with all his clients. I could see her face tense up. her smile faltering. She didn't know. I already knew everything, and that uncertainty was eating away at her. One night as we sat down for dinner, I casually mentioned, "Hey, I heard the gym fired one of their trainers. Tough break, huh?" I watched her eyes flicker with panic for just a split second before she composed herself. "Oh yeah," she said, forcing a smile. "I think heard about that, but I didn't know him very well, liar." I could feel the power shift right there at the table. She was slipping, and she knew it, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook just yet. Let's square a little longer. I waited, the more anxious she got. Megan's little affair with Dave was crumbling, and she had no idea. I was the one pulling the strings. She still thought she was in control, still thought she could keep me in the dark, but I wasn't just going to let this blow over, not yet. I had more in store for both of them, and by the time I was done, Megan wouldn't even recognize the life she had once thought was so secure. This wasn't just about getting even, it was about making. Sure, she knew deep down that had messed with the wrong man, and I was just getting started. I'd already destroyed Dave's career, and Megan was teetering on the edge, though she didn't know it yet, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. There was one more move. I needed to make something more personal, something that would cut even deeper. That's where Jenny came in. Jenny had always been around, Megan's best friend since college. She was over at our house, constantly popping by for drinks, dinner, or just to gossip with Megan about whatever drama was going on in their little circle at first. I hadn't thought much of her. She was nice enough, and we got along, but I never paid her any special attention. But recently, after everything that had gone down with Megan, I started noticing things the way Jenny's eyes would linger on me just a little too long, how her laugh would come a bit too easily whenever I cracked a joke. Maybe it was all in my head, or maybe it was real. But one thing was certain. She attracted to me, and once I saw that, the next step in my revenge became obvious. I didn't plan it right away at first. It was just a thought, a dark, twisted fantasy about getting back at Megan by seducing her best friend. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like perfect move if I could have Jenny sleep with her and make it clear that Megan's betrayal wasn't just one-sided. It would crush her. She lose husband and her best friend all in one blow. The opportunity came. Friday evening, when Megan was out at the gym, probably meeting up with Dave. Not that he was much help to her now that he unemployed. Jenny came over for what seemed like a casual visit, just glass of wine and some idle chatter. But as soon as she walked through the door, I could feel the tension in air. I played it cool, keeping the conversation light. At first, we sat on the couch, a bottle of wine between us, and talked about everything and nothing, but there was something different in Jenny's demeanor that night. She was playful. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe something more, but her laughter came a little too easily, and her hand rested on my arm a little longer than necessary. I started testing the waters, throwing out subtle compliments, seeing how far I could push before she'd pushed back, but she never did every compliment. I gave every little flirtatious remark. I made she accepted with a smile and blush. It was almost too easy at one point. Jenny made some joke about how Megan's lucky to have you, and that's when I knew had her. I leaned in a little closer, letting my voice drop to that low conspiratorial tone that makes things feel more intimate. "Lucky," I said with a smirk. "Don't know about that sometimes. I wonder if she even notices. I'm still around." Jenny's eyes met mine, and there was something unspoken there. A connection we both understood but didn't need to put into words. She bit her lip clearly, unsure of what to say, but the way she looked at me said enough. She was intrigued. She was interested. I slid closer to her on the couch, letting my knee brush against hers. She didn't move away, you know. I said, keeping my voice soft sometimes, "I think it's nice just to talk to someone who actually sees me." Her breath hitched slightly, and she shifted in her seat, clearly flustered but not backing away. I could feel the electricity between us, the tension, building with every second that passed, and then without thinking, no, scratch that. I knew exactly what was doing. I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, letting my fingers graze her cheek. Jenny froze, eyes wide, but she didn't pull away. "You're beautiful," I murmured, leaning in just a fraction closer. Her lips parted slightly, her breath shallow, and in that moment, I knew she wanted it was as much I did. The next move was hers. She could pull away, laugh it off, pretend like this wasn't happening, or she could lean into it, let it happen, and she leaned before I knew it. Her lips were on mine, soft and hesitant at first, but growing more prominent with each passing second. I kissed her back, feeling a surge of satisfaction, not just from the physical act, but from knowing what this would mean for Megan. When she eventually found out we didn't waste any time after that, one thing led to another, and before long we were tangled up in each other. Lost. In the heat of moment. It wasn't love, not by a long shot. It wasn't even lust. It was revenge, pure and simple. It felt damn good when it was over. We lay there in silence for a while, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. Jenny seemed a little dazed, maybe even regretful, but I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. This was all part the plan for her. Maybe it had been a mistake, a one-night slip-up she'd want to forget, but for me it was a calculated move, a way to humiliate Megan on deeper level, to take something from her that she would never be able to get back. I could see the guilt start to creep into Jenny's eyes as she pulled her clothes back on, fumbling with her blouse, as if she was suddenly ashamed of what we'd done. But I didn't say anything to reassure her. I didn't need to, had gotten what I wanted. And that was enough. As she left, hesitated at the door, her voice soft and uncertain. This stays between us, right? I gave her a smile, that cold, calculated one I'd been perfecting over the past few weeks, of course, our little secret. She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Maybe she already knew that. Secrets like this never stay buried for long after she left. I sat back on the couch, a feeling of triumph flashing over me. Megan was still out, oblivious to the fact that her husband and best friend had just betrayed her in the most intimate way possible. She thought was in control, thought she could keep up her little charade with Dave, but when she eventually found out about Jenny and me, it would destroy her, and I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when it was all came crashing down. The beauty of it was all. Megan was still completely unaware, carrying on with her life as if nothing was wrong. She had no idea that her best friend had just spent the night in our bed, and that made my victory all the sweeter. I knew the moment had come after weeks of letting Megan squirm, playing her own guilt and paranoia against her. It was time to pull the plug, the satisfaction. I'd been waiting for the final blow that would shatter. Her world was right in front of me. It was a Friday night and the kids were asleep. I'd been thinking about this from rotation for days, running it over in my head, imagining how it would go down. Part of me wanted it to be a screaming match, the kind where all pin-up frustration and anger could finally spill out. But the colder, more methodical part of me knew that staying calm, staying detached, would hurt her more if she thought could manipulate me, twist things to make herself the victim. I'd shut that down immediately. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone, probably texting. Dave, the thought of it made me sick, but I kept my face blank. She looked up as I entered the room, her expression neutral. She hadn't a clue what was coming. "Megan," I said, my voice low and steady. "We need to talk." There must have been something in my tone, because her eyes flickered with a bit of nervousness. "What's going on?" she asked, setting her phone down, but not too far, always keeping it close. I didn't waste any time. I pulled out the envelope Michael had given me weeks ago, the one filled with photos and videos of her, and Dave sneaking around like a couple of horny teenagers. I tossed it on the coffee table between us. She stared at it, not moving her face. "Frozen. What's that?" she asked, her voice already starting to crack. She knew, deep down knew, it was inside open. I said, crossing my arms as I leaned against the back of the couch. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice calm, emotionless. Megan's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. She opened it slowly, as if dragging out would somehow change what was inside, but nothing could change what was in there. The truth was right in front of her as she pulled out the photos. Her face went pale. She flicked through them in silence, her eyes widening with every image. I could see the panic setting in, the realization that her little secret wasn't a secret anymore. She started, but I cut her off. "Don't." Just took out my phone and pressed play on one of the videos Michael had captured. It was grainy, shot from a distance, but it was enough to show her sneaking out of a parking lot with Dave, their hands all over each other. I know everything. Megan, the affair with Dave, the lies, the excuses, all of it. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock for a moment. She tried to recover. Play innocent like she always did. John, it's not what you think. He's just don't lie to me. I snapped, my voice cutting through her pathetic attempt at denial. I have the photos, videos. I'd known for weeks, so don't even try to deny it. Her face crumpled, and I could see the cracks in her composure. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a second, I thought she was going to cry. But it wasn't real. None of it was real. John, please, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't mean for it to happen, just did. I was lonely and you weren't there for me. You've been so distant, wrapped up in work there. It was the same old song and dance she was going to turn this around on me, make herself the victim, try to blame her affair on me. The anger that had been simmering inside me for so long finally bubbled over. Don't you dare, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare try to blame this on me. You're the one who cheated. You're the one who lied. Don't act like I'm the reason you decided to spread your legs for him. Her tears started falling then, but I didn't care. I'd seen this act before, and I wasn't buying it, not this time. I'm filing for divorce, I said, my voice cold and final. I'm going to fight for full custody of the kids. At that, her sobbing got louder. No. John, please, we can work this out. Think about Evan and Lauren. They need us both. I am thinking about them, I said sharply, which is why I'm going to make sure they don't have to grow up in a house with cheating mother. Megan collapsed onto the couch, her head in hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I could feel the tiny least bit of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough, not yet. Just when I thought it was over, the front door creaked open and Jenny stepped inside. I hadn't expected her to show up tonight, but in a twisted way, it was perfect timing. This was going to get even uglier. Megan looked up through her tears, seeing her best friend enter the room. Jenny, please tell him it was a mistake, tell him, but Jenny's face was as pale a ghost. She walked slowly toward us, her hands trembling. Megan, she whispered, her voice filled with guilt. There's something I need to tell you. Watched as the words struggled to form on Jenny's lips. She glanced at me, then back at Megan, her eyes filled with shame. What is it? Megan asked, her voice thick with tears. Jenny took a deep breath and looked Megan straight in the eye. I contracted an STD, Megan, and it wasn't from anyone. I'd been seeing it was from John. Megan froze, her sobs stopping abruptly as the words hit her. It was as if the ground had been ripped out from under her face, twisted in disbelief, then horror, then rage. You what? Megan's voice was barely a whisper. Jenny kept talking, unable to stop the flood of guilt. I'm sorry we slept together. It was just once, but it happened for a second. I thought Megan might explode, scream, yell, throw something, but she didn't. Instead, she just sat there, her whole body shaking, her mind struggling to process what had just been dropped on her, the betrayal from her best friend. The reality of what I had done, and that was it. Megan was broken. I could see in her eyes the affair with Dave was nothing compared to what she had just found out. The man she had cheated on, husband she thought had under her thumb, had slept with her best friend, and there was no going back from that. I turned to leave, my heart pounding in chest. I didn't need to say anything else. The damage was done, and Megan's world had just collapsed around her. The last thing I heard as walked out the door was her broken sobs, the sound of life shattering into pieces, and for the first time in months. I felt free the day the divorce was finalized, felt like stepping into the sunlight after years of living in a dark, suffocating tunnel. It was official. Megan no longer part of my life. The kids were with me most of the time, and the shackles of a toxic marriage were finally broken. The relief that washed over me was indescribable. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. In the months leading up to that moment, I'd been planning for something bigger, something I had put on the back burner for far too long. Megan had always found a way to shoot down my dreams, constantly reminding me how risky it was, how unsafe it would be for the family, and like a fool, I let her keep me stuck in a life that I didn't really want, but now there was nothing standing in my way. I had always dreamed of opening my own business, a small tech consulting firm. I had the skills, the experience, connections, hell. I'd been doing it for years, working for other people making them. Ritual. I stayed stagnant. The difference now was that I doing it for myself with Megan gone. I poured myself into the business with kind of passion. I hadn't felt in years, rented a small office based downtown and started making calls at first. It was slow, a few contracts here and there, nothing big, but as word got out, people saw what I could offer. Things started to take off. I remember the first time I signed a major client. It was healthcare company looking to overhaul their entire IT infrastructure. Was a massive project, more than I'd ever taken on by myself before, but I didn't hesitate. I took the leap, and it paid off. Within a year, my business was booming. I had more work than I could handle on my own, so I hired a few more people, old colleagues who trusted me and wanted to work for someone who wasn't a corporate robot. We worked hard, sure, but it was on my terms. I was calling the shots, and it felt incredible. Every new contract, successful project was a reminder that I didn't need Megan, that I never needed her holding me back. I was free. As my business grew, so did my fromidence. I wasn't just a guy trying to get through the day anymore. I was successful, building something real that was mine, and with that success came a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. No more game names, manipulation, just me and the life I was carving out for myself and my kids. Then there was Megan. Her life, on the other hand, was unraveling. We got around about the affair. It was always does in these situations. First, it was whispers at the gym, in the PDA, among her friends. People started to distance themselves, not openly at first, but it was enough that she noticed the invitations to social events stopped coming. Her so-called friends disappeared, one by, until she was left with no one. The same gym where she'd spent hours with Dave. The place where her life had spiraled out of control became a place of shame for her. People knew they talked behind her back. Her reputation crumbled faster than she could put up her defenses. She tried to keep up appearances, but I could see it was killing her. The strong, confident woman who had once dominated every room she entered was now a shell of her former self. She was lonely, isolated, and worst of all, she knew it was her own fault. She had thrown away her family, friends, her reputation, for a man who didn't even stick around. I heard through the grapevine that Dave moved on pretty quickly. He found another job in a different town, probably because he couldn't face the fallout of what happened either. And Megan. She was left with nothing but regret. The few times we had to communicate, mostly about the kids, she seemed broken. The sharp, biting remarks that once came so easily from her were gone. She barely even looked me in the eye. I wasn't interested in her guilt or apologies. She had made her bed, and now she to lie in it. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My business continued to grow, and with each success, I felt lighter, more liberated. The control Megan once had over me emotionally, mentally, was gone. I wasn't weighed down by her criticisms or constant need to undermine everything I wanted to do. Evan and Lauren adjusted well to the new normal. They were happier than I'd seen them in a long time. Our home became a place of laughter again, free from the tension that had suffocated us for so long. I spent more time with him, real quality time, without Megan's constant interruptions or snide remarks. I was finally able to be the dad I wanted to be, not the one she tried to mold me into. There were moments when I catch myself thinking about how things had played out, how Megan's life had spiraled downward while mine had taken off. I didn't feel sorry for her, not one bit. She had made her choices, and this was the consequence for me. It was a new beginning, a fresh start. The toxic marriage that had once defined me was nothing but a memory now, and as I looked ahead, I knew that my life, business, relationship with my kids, and the peace I had found was mine to control, no one else's. Megan had lost everything, but I had gained something far more valuable: my freedom. John didn't hold back. He exposed the truth, took revenge, and even went further by involving Megan's best friend. But was it justice or just cruelty? What would you have done in his place? Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. It really means a lot.